There is a country with more pyramids than Egypt. Not a few more. Roughly double. And almost nobody knows it exists. Sudan has over 200 pyramids. They stretch across the desert at Meroe, Napata, Nuri, and El Kuru, the remains of a civilization that lasted longer than Rome, conquered Egypt, and fought the Roman Empire to a standstill. This is the Kingdom of Kush. And the fact that you have probably never heard of it tells you more about how history gets written than any textbook ever could. The Kushites were not Egyptians. They were a distinct civilization with their own language, their own writing system, their own gods. But they shared a border with Egypt along the Nile, and for thousands of years, the two cultures shaped each other. Sometimes as trading partners. Sometimes as bitter enemies. And once, for nearly a century, as conquerors. Around 750 BC, a Kushite king named Piye marched north and did something that nobody in the ancient world thought possible. He conquered Egypt. Not raided it. Not occupied a border town. Conquered the entire Nile Valley, from what is now Khartoum to the Mediterranean Sea. His successors, Shabaka, Taharqa, Tantamani, ruled as pharaohs of Egypt's 25th dynasty for nearly 100 years. They restored crumbling temples that Egypt's previous rulers had neglected. They revived ancient religious traditions. They governed an empire that stretched over 2,000 miles along the world's longest river. Taharqa was so significant that he appears in the Bible. 2 Kings, chapter 19, verse 9. A Kushite pharaoh, mentioned in the sacred text of a religion that would shape Western civilization, and most people reading those words today have no idea who he was or where he came from. The Assyrians eventually drove the Kushites out of Egypt in 656 BC. But Kush did not collapse. It retreated south, moved its capital to the city of Meroe, and entered a new golden age that would last another 1,000 years. Meroe was a center of iron production. Furnaces dating to the 7th century BC have been excavated there, among the earliest evidence of iron smelting in all of Africa. The city sat at a crossroads of trade routes connecting the Mediterranean world, the Red Sea, Arabia, and the African interior. Gold, ivory, and iron flowed out. Ideas, art, and influence flowed in. And the Kushites did something remarkable. They developed their own writing system. The Meroitic script, both a cursive form for everyday use and a hieroglyphic form for royal inscriptions. Scholars deciphered the alphabet in 1909. They can read the letters. They can sound out the words. But here is the haunting part, the language itself remains untranslated. Over 1,000 texts exist that we can pronounce but cannot understand. An entire civilization speaking to us across 2,000 years in a voice we still cannot comprehend. Then there were the queens. The Kandakes. Female rulers who govern in their own right, not as regents for young sons or stand-ins for absent husbands. The Greeks and Romans encountered these women and were so confused by the concept of a ruling queen that they assumed Candace was a personal name rather than a royal title. One of these queens nearly changed the course of Roman history. In 25 BC, Kandake Amanirenas launched an attack on Roman-occupied Egypt while the governor was away on campaign. Her forces captured 3 cities, enslaved the inhabitants, and tore down statues of Emperor Augustus. Then she did something extraordinary. She took the bronze head of one Augustus statue and buried it beneath the steps of a temple at Meroe. Everyone who entered would step on the emperor's face. That head was found by archaeologists 2,000 years later, still buried exactly where she put it. It sits in the British Museum today. Rome struck back. The prefect Petronius marched south and sacked the old capital of Napata. But Amanirenas kept fighting. She raised another army and moved north again. Eventually Rome agreed to negotiate. The treaty was stunning. Kush paid no tribute. Rome withdrew from contested territory. The frontier was set, and Rome never pushed further into Africa. A one-eyed queen, Strabo describes her as blind in one eye, fought the most powerful empire on earth and walked away with better terms than most of Rome's enemies ever dreamed of. The pyramids of Kush are smaller than Egypt's, most stand between 20 and 100 feet tall, with steep 70-degree angles that give them a sharp, distinctive silhouette against the desert sky. They were built over a span of 1100 years, from roughly 750 BC to 350 AD. Inside the tombs beneath them, kings and queens were buried with gold, jewelry, weapons, and pottery that reflected centuries of cultural exchange between Africa, the Mediterranean, and the East. In the 1830s, an Italian treasure hunter named Giuseppe Ferlini traveled to Meroe. He demolished over 40 pyramids from the top down, searching for gold. He found the treasure of Cande Camanachikito, dozens of pieces of gold and silver jewelry. The pyramids he destroyed had stood for 2,000 years. They were gone in weeks. The Kingdom of Kush eventually fell around 350 AD when the neighboring Kingdom of Aksum, in modern-day Ethiopia, captured Meroe. But its legacy did not disappear. 3 successor kingdoms carried its culture forward, eventually converting to Christianity and lasting until the medieval period. 200 pyramids in the desert. A 1,000-year empire. A queen who humiliated Rome. A writing system we still cannot read. And most of the world has never heard any of it. That is not an accident. That is a choice.